The city of Saratov in Russia looks like an assemblage of forgotten large panel apartment blocks whose technical condition threatens collapse, and the residents still live in them for lack of choice. The streets of Saratov are full of potholes that disappear under the snow in winter and turn into muddy corridors in summer, hindering everyday movement and commuting. Wages in the local economy are among the lowest in the European part of the country, which means the average pay does not cover basic living costs. In many homes, families barely make ends meet, and pensions are the only source of income, which is not enough even for medicines and the fuel needed in winter. Local authorities tend to sweep problems under the carpet, investing energy in propaganda instead of real infrastructural and social solutions. Unemployment in some districts reaches dramatic levels, and young residents are leaving the city en masse in search of work in Moscow or abroad. The education and healthcare system operates in many places under dire conditions. The lack of basic medicines and inadequate medical equipment is the everyday reality for patients. In the surrounding villages, life resembles the 19th century. Residents heat their homes with wood or coal stoves and lack modern infrastructure. In winter, there are frequent power and heat outages, which exacerbate poverty and expose residents to direct health risks associated with the cold. Public transport relies on old buses and falling-apart minibuses that provide neither safety nor comfort, and commuting is an ordeal for passengers. A sense of abandonment by the state is widespread. Residents feel their problems are overlooked in favor of political symbols and spectacular central actions. Local-level corruption blocks every development project. Major investments are stuck on paper, and public funds do not reach the communities in need. The police more often protect the interests of power than ordinary people, which weakens trust in institutions and causes residents to report crimes less frequently. Local life revolves mainly around the market and neighborhood shops, where most of the exchange of goods and information between families and seniors takes place. Many families sustain themselves from small plots and home gardens. Producing food for personal needs becomes a necessity to survive the hard months. Detroit years ago was the heart of the American automotive industry, symbolizing the power of production and mass factory labor that shaped the city's life. The collapse of the auto industry caused mass unemployment and a rapid outflow of residents, transforming the city into wide areas of empty neighborhoods and ruins. The large expanses of Detroit today are empty blocks, abandoned houses with broken windows and graffiti, giving the landscape an atmosphere of abandonment and decadence. Crime in Detroit reached significant levels, gangs vie for control of neighborhoods, and shootings and violence have become part of residents' daily lives. Public schools in many areas are underfunded, and young people lose faith in the education system, which contributes to declining aspirations and rising social pathology. Hospitals were closed due to the city's bankruptcy, making access to medical care difficult, especially for the most vulnerable groups of residents. Unemployment in the city long exceeded national averages, and many people had to rely on benefits or social assistance to survive. Easily available alcohol became part of the local means of subsistence, and dealing in substances provided income where industry had collapsed. The city administration attempts to attract investment, but the revitalization process progresses slowly, running into economic difficulties and structural problems. Social observations indicate that Detroit balances between attempts at revival and further decay, making it a symbol of both failure and hope at once. The comparison shows that both metropolises bear signs of decline but differ in the origins of their situations, one resulting from state neglect, the other from industrial devastation. In Saratov, poverty is deeply embedded in residents' daily reality, translating into infrastructural deficits and chronic underfunding of services. In Detroit, the problem largely stems from industrial collapse and capital flight, which left empty spaces and heavy financial obligations for the city. In both places, similar social effects are visible: unemployment, pathologies, addiction, and reduced quality of life. Yet the mechanisms leading to the crisis differ. In Saratov, residents often experience a lack of basic utilities and energy stability, which affects the health and safety of families, especially in winter. In Detroit, by contrast, the problem is marginalized neighborhoods and lack of access to urban services resulting from broad economic collapse and budget shortfalls. In Saratov, young people emigrate in search of work and better living conditions, causing the city to face an internal erosion of human capital and prospects. Population outflow in Detroit created an urban void, yet revitalization initiatives have emerged, using vacant lots for new social projects. Local corruption in Saratov paralyzes every ambitious investment project, whereas in Detroit, the issue is often the city's debts and competition for limited funds. In Saratov, school and health infrastructure require urgent repairs, and the lack of medicines and equipment marginalizes the basic needs of local families. Detroit struggles with the consequences of hospital and school closures, but also with attempts to adapt urban space to new economic models and social innovations. In Saratov, thieves operate with impunity, whereas in Detroit, organized crime takes the form of gangs, trafficking, and territorial occupation. Alcohol plays a destructive role in both cities. In Saratov, more often as a consequence of social collapse, and in Detroit as an element of a broader structural crisis. Prospects for Saratov residents seem modest. The lack of wide employment and investment programs means the city is increasingly losing potential. In Detroit, there are local social and entrepreneurial projects offering a glimmer of hope, but their scale does not yet compensate for decades of lost investment. The social costs of the crisis include destroyed family ties, increasing health problems, and the burden on aid systems that cannot cope with demand. If one compares the overall picture, Saratov appears as a place where living conditions can be worse than in American Detroit, especially because of the lack of state response.